We are taught to believe that power rests on consent, belief, and participation. But that's not actually true. The regime that we're living under now, that purportedly anyway came to power under democratic norms but is now dismantling them, no longer needs your belief, your consent, or even your participation. What it needs is legitimacy. And that is what is failing right now. Not theoretically, not someday, now. When ICE can shoot and kill people point blank, most recently a U.S. citizen who wasn't threatening anyone, who was legally carrying, who was just holding his phone, and then attempt to control the narrative when everybody saw exactly what happened, that is a loss of legitimacy. When federal authorities respond not with accountability, but with threats, like Pam Bondi asking for Minnesota voter registration rolls in response to a state request to remove ICE, that's leverage, not governance. And leverage is what regimes use when legitimacy fails. Here's the uncomfortable truth that we have to hold right now. Not everyone at a party or on an island commits atrocities. And not everybody who was on a flight log knows what happens after midnight. But maybe they were there just long enough with a woman or a man who wasn't their wife, and it would be best that that not be known. And not everybody who votes for a bill endorses brutality. Maybe it's just a little quid pro quo for having been supported in their own election. Sometimes people are close enough to power and just vulnerable enough that their silence can be purchased. Sometimes people trade moral clarity for funding, protection, influence, career survival. And some people just tell themselves that they're being pragmatic. But this kind of silence, it's not neutrality. It's how legitimacy drains out of a system while force amps up to replace it. That's why we're seeing full pages blacked out. That's why we're seeing Congress mute. That's why we're seeing media figures bowing down. And that's why we're seeing force expanding instead of contracting. And that's why this is the dangerous time, because when legitimacy fails, these systems stop trying to persuade and start pressing. A regime without legitimacy can still wield power, fund violence, threaten, suppress, and arrest, but it cannot stabilize itself. That's why this moment feels so fucking unbearable, because it's not that we don't know what's happening, it's that we're being forced to live inside this moment where the truth is just so brutally visible, but the accountability is being delayed. And while this liminal space is killing us, it's also revealing something very essential, that the beast is thrashing, but it's also exposed. And once legitimacy is lost, it can almost never recover, because it doesn't come from force, it comes from trust. And trust, once it's broken this publicly, it can't and won't recover quietly. And we're unsettled because we're paying attention. And that's the only way that legitimacy is going to shift. Continuing to pay attention without surrender, and continuing to insist that in no way, shape, or form is any of this normal.